This week on Arts InSight, 3D paper magic.
You're taking time and making something evolve and change over it.
Collages take on a life of their own.
I'm very interested in the idea of using collage to begin to provoke thought.
Moving with the design of dance.
We provide space for choreographers and a dance company to choreographers so that all a choreographer has to do is walk in the room and begin.
And wearable art inspired by nature.
So that's my goal. I want to bring beauty to the world, and I want them to feel fabulous and unique.
I'm Ernie Manous, and it's time to get Arts InSight. Welcome to Arts InSight. Well, it's that time of year again. We're behind the scenes at rehearsal for the Houston Shakespeare Festival. And later on in the show, we'll get to chat with one of the play's directors. But first, a Houston animator changed his whole world by bringing paper to life.
Animation, what makes it unique is that it's sculpting in time, essentially. You're taking time and making something evolve and change over it. Animation that inspires me is magic. Something that shouldn't be coming to life and moving on its own is now walking, moving, dancing. It's alive. Stop motion animation is stitching a series of photographs together, one frame at a time, which usually equates to like 24 frames in a second. So that's 24 photographs to make up 1 second of animation. In between each of those frames, there's small micro movements to where when you play them back together, it looks like they're moving on their own. I do think that even just with animation in general, most people associate that with children's programming. That's what I find really interesting, is that unexpected element of, well, you can tell richer, more complex stories. Paperbrain is my animation company. Even though the focus is actually paper-based animation, it's about handcrafted, handmade animation. And my wife is a big part of Paperbrain too. You know, I'm very lucky to have a creative family. Probably the biggest source of inspiration when I'm telling new stories is stuff that comes from the mouths and the minds of my kids. They're at that young, raw age where they're so just connected to their imagination that I'm just constantly amazed with the stories they come up with. On one of my recent short films, my son basically point blank told me, this needs dinosaurs in it. And it was a storyline that had nothing to do with dinosaurs, so I was like, you know, you're right. Let's put a dinosaur in this thing. And that ended up kind of shaping the end of the way the narrative came about in that story, and yeah, he loved it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. To create a paper film, all you need is paper and some sort of device that can take photographs. I have a camera that's connected to a computer system. I want to be able to see the frames that I just photographed to make sure that the timing of the movements, when they're played back in real time, match up and make sense. I have a multiplane down shooter, which is something that allows me to set my camera to different heights. And then I have glass panes beneath it where I can place my paper creations, whether they're 2D or 3D. So the 3D paper animations, that's kind of the place where I get to just let intuition kind of take over. And that's probably my favorite way to explore the craft. There was a music video. I did Anything Made of Paper by the musician Bill Carter. I think just that contrast of telling a story that has such a deep, heavy message with something that looks childlike it's just an interesting combination. It puts you in a different space when you're viewing it.
When I come to see you, what will I bring?
I want to see how it turns out. And I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me so excited all the time about what I'm doing is I always want to see, how's this going to look after the fact? I want to see the finished thing. So every little scissor cut and every little micro movement I make, it's all a part of that excitement for that goal, is to see how is this film going to look in the end.
Turn in the fall, and anything made of paper, that's all. That's all.
See more animation at brandonray.net. We're at the School of Theater and Dance at the University of Houston, where this year's Shakespeare Festival cast and crew are deep in rehearsals. But, as promised, we're pulling aside one of the directors. So joining us right now is Jack Young. Hello, Jack.
Morning.
Okay, so did Much Ado find you, or did you find Much Ado?
Much Ado found me. I've done a bunch of Shakespeare, and flipping through the list, and what do we got to do next season? And Much Ado hadn't been on the bill for a while, and thought, and it's a romantic comedy, which usually I'm the slash and bash guy, but it was time to put this on for HSF and time for me to jump into it as well, and I'm having a great time.
When you say slash and bash, you also did fight choreography,
yeah,
right?
I'm the fight director for Henry V as well. And so last year I did Macker's McBee, and I've done Henry IV the season before, so I'm doing a lot of history and tragedy. But a chance to step into something lighter, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. It's an ice cream social of a play. People looking good and performing in front of each other, and sort of out on a walk. A light little thing. It's gonna be a nice thing for the summer.
So Shakespeare's been done over and over. How much of this show is catalog, you go and you buy what you need, and how much do you have to build right here?
Well, I don't get the plays chosen without knowing what we already have in stock. Because some of it has to come from things we have. We have swords, so we have broadswords and things together for Henry V. We've got the weaponry to take care of that. When we're taking on plays in 1898, which is where we're set Much Ado About Nothing. We've had a number of shows sort of around that time period, so we've got a certain amount of stock. Shoes will kill you, so at least we have the boots and things taken care of. But we also have to make sure there's enough fun in the shops, because they can't just come in and like assemble things from before. So what's been great is the lovely dresses that we'll have for Much Ado About Nothing. The wedding dresses have all been built specifically for this production.
It's Shakespeare.
It is.
The language. You're working with the actors. What do you do to help the actors bring that language to life?
It's a matter of shifting their mindset so that what they're saying is what they mean. I mean, again, 400 years from now, when someone's reading Toyota or Tercel or Mercedes-Benz, they're not going to know the difference between those. They'll look at the footnotes. But if you got the actors that can take, no, a Toyota, that's not a bad car, but a Mercedes-Benz, it's the same kind of thing. And so we have to make sure those differentiations that were making sense in 1600 make sense to us now. And the actors can make that go. As soon as they start finding the equivalents in their own mind, it's what comes out of their mouth.
Okay, so you move the play period-wise. Yeah. You actually have to move the play from here out into the park.
Yeah.
Which is a tougher lift?
Well, they're both even. What's fun for us here is we've got this beautiful facility. 208 is a great place to rehearse a room, but it's just barely wide enough for the stage. Unfortunately, we get to run down to our Wortham stage, which is larger, and I can stand farther out in the house and go, to me, guys, to me, because the back of our 560-seat house is the middle of the Miller seating, which is only a quarter of the way up to the top of the hill. So we're taking Shakespeare and trying to make a truth that's of a certain size here in our space, and then they have to expand it operatically out to make it all the way to the folks on the hill.
And they still got this weekend to get out there and see all the fine work you folks are doing.
Yeah. We're running all the way through the 7th.
Well,
So,
thank you so much.
Great.
A pleasure.
Thanks for
and
coming
thanks
over.
for sharing your ideas and your thoughts with us.
Thanks. Coming out.
Find out more at HoustonShakespeareFestival.com. Now, after a 5-year art hiatus, an artist in Ohio created her first collage out of old magazine clippings, and then she shared it on social media. This turned into a daily practice. Yep, every single day for more than 3 years.
A lot of my work is funny. A lot of my work is weird. It's kooky. It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of jarring. And I like that aspect of work that surprises me, and that I make things and I say, that's really creepy. That's really weird. When I create a collage, it feels like magic. I know that might seem really cliche. It is a process that is hard to describe. It is very intuitive for me. Most of the time, I feel as though I am taking parts and pieces of an image that need to be together and finding a home for them. And because of that, I don't become too attached to the work. I tend to see it as something that exists in the world beyond me after I make it, because these aspects of it existed in the world before me. Every day, I get up, I sit at my desk, and I make a collage. And then I post them online. It's a pretty important part of my process is sharing them every day. It's kind of become a performative aspect of opening them up to the world and letting everybody see what's been on my mind that day. I love the practice of it. I love the process of it. I love sitting down and not knowing what's going to happen and figuring it out. And I really like putting things together to make a larger whole. The process is very meditative. It's a time in which I can quiet myself and focus. And there's a lot of joy in that. The length of time that it takes, it varies from day to day. Some days it takes a half an hour, start to finish. Sometimes it takes 8 hours. For a while, I was convinced that it would take however much free time I had. I have had a consistent daily practice for over 3 years now. I know that seems like a very long time in the span of a daily action, but it doesn't feel as though it's been that long at all. I think the biggest challenge is staying focused and staying committed, because crazy things happen in life, and I try and be very kind to myself and recognize that some days I'm gonna have work that I am more happy with than other days. So I started these daily intentional actions after I kind of went through a pretty big health struggle in my early 20s. Growing up, I had a lot of pain in my legs, and I was told that I would be in a wheelchair by age 25, and so I felt as though I had a timeline of things that I needed to accomplish before then. It was increasingly a painful experience, and I ended up using a walker and wheelchair briefly for some of my college years until I found out that I had been misdiagnosed. I found out that I had been misdiagnosed with an illness that had really changed my life and my quality of life. It was extremely freeing and liberating to feel as though the world was open to me, and at the same time it was extremely terrifying to not know who I was without that illness. And that, I think, was a big transition. The realization that the world and the life that I thought I was going to have would be different set a different course to the way that I chose to live. So I just decided every day I'm going to do one thing, no matter how big, and I'm going to just see where it takes me. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to apply any sort of critical eye to it. I'm just going to go with it and see what the collection of those intentional actions will be. It never ends. I could do this for approximately 1,000 collages. I explore a lot of different concepts and work through things in ways that I don't even realize until I kind of take a step back and look in retrospect at what I've done the previous weeks and months. Yeah, there's a lot of themes that I find recurring in my work. A lot of my work is figurative. There's a hybridization between nature, human, and technology. I'm very inspired by movement, by gesture, and I'm also very influenced by the female form and the way that it is used and fictionalized in media. I find myself interested in removing those from their context and recontextualizing them. And I think taking those images and kind of twisting them in a way that can be humorous and playful and really begin to speak about the way the images and media and the way that we interact with them is kind of the overarching theme of all of my work. The choice to share my work on social media is no mistake. I'm not saying I'm trying to change the world, but I'm very interested in the idea of using collage to begin to provoke thought, to subvert social media and these images that we kind of just mindlessly scroll through and mindlessly take in. I'm interested in creating something that creates a pause, creates a moment that maybe things seem a little off, and it begins to open your mind to expand what else you see beyond that image. It is not that I am creating it, it is that for a time I get to allow something to happen and then put it out there, and that is the most fulfilling part, and the fact I get joy out of it is even better, so that's it.
To see more, you can visit the artist's website. Up next, New York City's Broadway Dance Lab is a choreography incubator, giving dancers the resources to bring their visions to life.
Currently, there are no other places in New York City that exist like Broadway Dance Lab. We provide space for choreographers and a dance company to choreographers so that all a choreographer has to do is walk in the room and begin. We do not place demands in the lab on what you are to work on, what you are to explore. It is truly a creative place for you as a choreographer to come in with the best tools at your disposal and just start. Just play, follow your impulses if that's what you feel like doing and seeing where that leads, or coming in with a pre-planned idea and seeing if it works, so that they have no concern whatsoever but the artistic process. I, as an artistic director, do not dictate what a choreographer works on. So I could reach out to Marcelo Gomez, for instance, from the ballet world, and he could come in and want to do something hip-hop. I know that sounds somewhat outrageous to some people, but this is the freedom that we're looking to offer our artistic community.
This was really, for me, an incredible invitation to say, hey, we are giving you the studio for 4 hours each day, and you can create whatever you want. And it's fine if you don't show something, and it's fine if you do show a little piece of it. If you want to just talk to your dancers, you can. And to have that blank canvas, you are able to be much more creative. It's not easy being a well-known dancer and becoming a choreographer after. It's definitely very hard, but because I think that the expectations are very high. I think people come to see me in a performance expect the same kind of level of my choreography. And I am finding my voice, I am finding my vocabulary, I am experimenting, and this is what Broadway Dance Lab has given me.
Wait and see, we might fit together. That would be my lucky day, yeah. Come by me.
Broadway Dance Lab is the only place that employs dancers at a competitive salary to retain their services. We also give them insurances. If a dancer gets injured, that can be a very costly thing for them. They have doctor's appointments and physical therapists, and recuperation can be very, very expensive for them. So if I'm a choreographer in a room with my dancers and I know they don't have workman's comp insurance, am I going to ask them to try something that might be a little bit dangerous? So my philosophy is we secure these dancers with competitive salaries and insurance in order to allow them to feel the freedom to try anything. I don't think it can be underestimated the effect that working with all of these multiple choreographers has on the dance company itself. And that company of young dancers, so one week they have Marcelo Gomez. The next week they're working with Andy Blankenbuehler, a Tony Award winner, who may come in and work on some pre-production for a new musical he's developing.
Bless my soul, Kirk was on a roll, cursing up the weekend, every Greek opinion poll.
Working with Camille Brown, who may wish to do as many 2-minute sequences as she possibly can, and all of these dancers are hired so that they can do as much of that as possible and provide as much of that for each choreographer as possible.
Zero to hero, in no time flat. Zero to hero, just like that.
I, for one, have seen the dance world around me be very segregated. You are either a Broadway choreographer or a modern choreographer or a ballet choreographer. By gathering together the dance community at large, that we can strengthen the products that we see on the stage.
I think that as dancers, we train our bodies to, over the years, many, many years, to be able to do that certain step or to be able to be the perfect Juliet or the perfect Swan Queen. And I think that you do need time as well to develop yourself as a choreographer.
Okay, the first thing is the braid. Didn't work, I just wrote braid. After soutenu, and we go, I don't know.
You don't know what the future holds. You create something that you are feeling at the moment. In this case, I wanted to make this story. Perhaps it could, become a play, it could become a musical, it could stay as a ballet. But what I know is that we were all invested for those hours being creative in the studio. And that's really what I wish people would see more in our art form. The process of those maybe 1 or 2 dancers have pushed themselves to such limit that they didn't know that they could do. That is really an incredible point that I think that Broadway Dance Lab has done. Of course, it's nice if something has a future. Of course, somebody, if they see it and they like it, but it's also okay if it not, because I know that dancers and I have done something and we have worked towards something.
I cannot tell anyone where we will be in 10 years, but the arts community, from the ballet world to the Broadway world, need a place like this. So it's my firm belief that all it takes is the awareness that it's here now, that we're here to stay, that we need your support, and it will find its way.
You can find out more by visiting BroadwayDanceLab.org. And finally tonight, art, form, and function all come together in the creations of a fiber artist. And her fashion journey began with her childhood in the Soviet Union.
I'm a fiber artist and I create wearable art. I use freestyle knitting and I use different fiber techniques as stitching, hand sewing, crocheting. It's mostly freestyle, so you never know what you're gonna get in the end. That's the beauty of that. I actually grew up in the south of Ukraine, the place called Sevastopol, so it's in Crimea. When I was growing up, it was Soviet Union. The government pretty much wanted us to be the same, so we have those very awful uniforms. So it was brown, it was awful. I never want to be the same like everyone else. I want to always stand out of the crowd. So since I was a child, I started to sketch the ideas for my clothes, and I had a seamstress lady. She was sewing things for me. It was amazing. And you know what? All my friends was always, where did you find it? Because you couldn't find anything in the stores. It was empty. Most of my inspiration comes from nature. I'm a big fan of nature, hiking, kayaking. I love to travel. I always have my sketchbook handy, it's always in my bag, but sometimes you go somewhere, you know, in the jungles, you don't have your sketchbook, so it's always nice to have your phone. So I would make some pictures, and later on after the trip, I like to go and see those pictures, start to draw and pick up the yarns, you know, just get all those balls of yarn that remind me of some beautiful flower. All my yarns are very luxurious. They mostly come from Italy, they come from France. They are very interesting texture. To start my project, I would have to gather some different yarns together. So, and I just start to work. I pretty much know what shape it's gonna be, but I don't know how the color is gonna end up, how the texture gonna look. So I'm just having fun with that. It's gonna come up as a surprise. And some of the pieces I have to hand sew after all, and then I have to crochet around the edges. So I use a lot of different skills for that. First of all, I want every woman to feel herself beautiful. So that's my goal. I want to bring beauty to the world, and I want them to feel fabulous and unique. And I just want them to be themselves, but showing something different, something unique. That's my goal is. I'm very happy that I moved to this country because I believe if you work hard, if you're creative, if you're passionate, you can succeed. Because in my country, I never thought about doing what I do for a living. I had a day-to-day job. I was a librarian, I was in the Navy, and I work in the bank. So, and that was always a hobby of mine. So here, I was able to not create a hobby, I was able to make living out of that. So I believe that America just made me who I am, and I'm very happy in this country. I really hope I'll be strong enough and healthy enough to do this till the day I die, hopefully. That's my passion. That's what I love to do.
For more information, visit foxychic.com. And that does it for this edition of Arts Insight. For all of us here at Houston Public Media, I'm Ernie Manous. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.